Welcome to the Games Master Stable. I'm James McEwan, your host. This is a new show that's going to talk about all things wargaming, from miniature wargaming to role-playing game. You name it, it has to do with gaming. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about tips on painting. We're going to talk about paper models, how to put them together, which paper models are out there. We're going to talk about all sorts of great stuff out here. So today, I want you to welcome to the show a very special guest. This guy is a living legend in the wargaming world. He's a pioneer. He has been a sculptor for 50 years. He has been a designer, an artist, and he happens to be my dad. I'm going to welcome to the show John McEwan. John? Apparently he knows he's supposed to be here. So you decided to use the transporter today, huh?
Well, yes. It's a much more efficient way of getting about.
Well, welcome to the show. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think we'd talk about some of the new paper buildings that I've been doing. They offer some real different options for the, those right there.
Yeah, so let's talk about this one over here, the bank, right?
Well, all right, the old stone bank was made in response to the idea that almost all terrain available in the market today for Old West gaming is what you normally think of as Old West buildings, ramshackle wooden structures, temporary. But in fact, many of the towns where a lot of the action took place, the buildings were actually built of stone or more durable materials. Also, would you want to build a bank made out of canvas and wood?
It'd be pretty easy to rob, I would think.
So I designed this old stone bank here, and this one you see here has the Banco de Mexico sign on it, but the kit comes with 6 different signs so that you can make it into 6 different businesses, buildings, banks, whatever you want. And it has a lot of options for the players because it could be used not only for Old West gaming in the 1870s or 1880s, but it could also be used clear up into the 1930s. So if you want to have your bank robbing crew roll up and hit the bank, this is a great place for it.
So what's the advantage of using a paper model over, say, some of the pre-done plastic models?
Well, cost first. Let's say that you're interested in a particular period of gaming, and you look out there and you see, well, what would it cost to go into this period? Well, when you look at an individual building, like the bank, for instance, if that were in resin, it would be very nice, and I thought about making it in resin, but the problem is the price.
And resin also has some other issues. Most resin isn't pre-painted, and so you have to paint it, where this comes with a texture, which is nice, so you just have to put it together, right?
Yes, that is correct. You just have to put it together.
Also, when you talk about storage, resin is heavy, so you have to store it, put it in boxes, you have to lift them off the shelf, fall on your head, crack your head. Not that we don't appreciate resin buildings, and we do use resin buildings, it's just that paper has some advantages over resin, being one of them is they're very light.
And inexpensive. This building can be downloaded from wargamesvault.com for a very little money.
Check the screen below, wargamesvault.com. That's where you can get it at if you're looking for these buildings.
Yeah. And this building right here is my rural U.S. garage. I built that mainly because I was looking on a website called shorpies.com where they have all kinds of old photographs. And I found a photograph of this ancient, dreary-looking old service station with the old-fashioned pump-up, see-through pumps. And it was way out in the middle of BFE, Oklahoma. And there was nothing around it but sagebrush and a couple of telephone poles. And I thought, I got to do a model of that one. So I did it up. And it's been a very good seller also. And again, it's very inexpensive. And this one is probably one of the easiest buildings I've done to put together.
Now, when we're talking about paper kits, Now, do they go to the website and they order it and it comes from the mail, or can they download it and print it out themselves?
Either way, they can order them printed from me or from wargamesvault.com. They can order a download.
Now, you say you can order it from you. Where do they order that from?
From River Esco or tin-soldier.com.
Again, check the bottom of the screen, tin-soldier.com if you're interested in any of these models. Now, how hard is it to put together a paper model? Say I'm a beginner. What skill level do I need to put one of these together?
Well, if you stick to models that are straightforward boxes, they're pretty simple to put together. This one and the ruined church here use 0.2-inch foam core as support underneath it, so they're very sturdy. They're every bit as sturdy as anything you'd find cast in resin.
So they hold up good to wargaming?
Oh yes, they'll last for years. I've got some of these things that have been around for 30 or more years.
Outstanding. So we have another building I want to talk to you about. It's kind of over here. We're going to bring it over into the shot here. And what can you tell me about this one?
Well, that is my first attempt at an actual historic building. This is the old Birdcage Theater in Tucson, Arizona, or pardon me, not Tucson, it's in Tombstone, Arizona, yes. And it is currently advertised as the most haunted structure in all of Arizona.
Why is that?
Well, it's because the place opened up during the silver boom in 1881, and it ran nonstop, night and day, never closing, for 8 years and 5 months and some odd days. During that period of time, it was considered to be one of the worst hellholes between San Francisco and New Orleans. It was a theater. They actually had vaudeville acts, and famous people, Eddie Foy, for instance, played there, and several other famous people in that day would come there and play. It was also a bordello. The reason for the name, the Birdcage Theater, is that along the sides of the building, there are structures up on the second floor that stick out, that are cantilevered out over the main floor, and these are theater boxes with curtains. And the ladies of the evening that worked there would draw these curtains and entertain their clients inside the bird cages, which is how it got its name.
Excellent. So if I was going to do some sort of historical stuff in Tombstone, this building actually is one of the buildings that was in the town.
Oh yeah, it's actually it's still there, as a matter of fact. It's a big tourist attraction. It's a museum. The people who own it claim that there are over 120 bullet holes in the walls. There were 26 murders that occurred there. It was a wild place.
Now, let me ask you a quick question here. Do you plan to do more buildings in Tombstone, so maybe I could have a whole Tombstone city?
Eventually, yes, there are several other buildings I will do in Tombstone. However, most of the buildings that are in Tombstone today do not go back much past the 1930s. Tombstone burnt down twice. And the reason the birdcage didn't burn down is it had a tin roof and it was made out of concrete blocks.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to burn, concrete.
Yeah.
So, if I go and I download this kit, and what am I going to need to put any of these together? What are the tools we're talking about here?
Well, you'll need a good sharp knife, an X-Acto knife to start with, and some good scissors. Scissors are very useful in some aspects. You'll also need glue. I like to use ordinary white glue, or in some cases I find Elmer's furniture glue to hold a little better than the white glue. There's also Aleene's sticky glue, which is very good if you have something that just needs a tiny spot of glue, but it has to hold real tight. And the sticky glue is very thick white glue. You have to squeeze hard to get it out of the bottom.
I've built a couple of these buildings. In fact, I've actually designed some that we'll be putting up on the web later on that you can purchase. And in doing so, I have discovered one of the things, or one of the tricks to putting together these buildings is less glue is better.
Yes, that is true. You don't want to overuse the glue. That's one reason that you want to keep at least 2 or 3 types of glue on that are in different consistencies. Like the sticky glue is very good for areas like you want to glue a little, like the front sign on this building that projects out over the boardwalk. That was glued on with Aleene's sticky glue. And
now, I've seen you use a little toothpick to put the glue on there and smear glue on some of the edges. I've also used the cuttings when you cut out your your stuff. Sometimes I'll use that to get in spaces I can't get the toothpick in. And just a little tiny bit of glue is all you need, because if you put too much on, the moisture in the glue will warp the paper.
Yeah, that's true. You have to be careful. Also, it is very helpful after the building is constructed to paint over it with something like gesso or what is that stuff anyway that I use?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We'll find out. We'll get back to you on that one. Okay, so when talking building these things, now you also use a plastic cutting board to cut them out on, and a straight edge metal.
Yeah, a metal ruler is a definite must, because an awful lot of these, whether they fit together when you put them together, depends on how straight your lines are. And so it really helps to have a ruler with either a metal edge or a metal edged ruler. I've got an 18-incher with a cork backing on it to keep it from slipping, and it's very helpful.
All right. So what kind of paper are you going to use when you download and print it out yourself?
Well, some people like 110-pound index or Bristol. You can use as low as 65-pound. Which is available at most office supply stores. This is normally what they would sell you for cover stock.
And now, I personally print mine on inkjet printer, because that's what I have. Now, you use a laser, color laser printer for yours, right?
Either will work fine.
So either printer will produce a quality product for you to use.
Yes.
And the advantage of downloading it is if you make a mistake, you just reprint it out again, and you can do it over again. You haven't ruined a printed one and have to repurchase a printed one. So we recommend highly that you purchase the download ones, because then you can print them out yourself. You can make multiple copies of the buildings if you want.
Yes. One thing about this building is that you can, if you do the downloaded building, you can do it as the original 1880 design, which didn't have this attached kitchen on it, or you can do, and the original signing I have researched out very carefully, or you can do the 1934 version, which is when it was purchased and turned into a restaurant cum museum. And it was quite a bit different as far as the signing. It had a different awning and several things. Or you can do the modern version. This is the one that it looks like today. It's got the air conditioners on the top, which they didn't have back in the old days.
Outstanding. Now, you also produce and manufacture miniatures, correct?
Yes.
And what type of miniatures do you manufacture?
Well, we manufacture two types of miniatures. We do 1/64th scale, or 1.1 inch tall figures, which is very common wargaming scale. Or we do the older style, 25 millimeters, or 1 inch tall figures. The 1 inch tall figures correspond to 1/72nd scale, which is very common scale in plastic modeling, so it's very helpful if you want to use them with plastic airplanes or other types of things that, like, for instance, almost all the plastic figures that you buy on the market today are in 1/72nd scale. Airfix and all those type of things are 1/72nd scale, and so we do those figurines and some paper buildings in that scale also.
Now, what scale are these paper buildings in?
These are 1/64th scale.
Now, when you're talking scale, so some new gamers may not understand what scale means. When we talk scale, what does that mean?
That means 1 foot to 64 feet, or 1 inch to 64 inches.
Okay. So, if you have questions about all this, there are plenty of places you can look up on the web. We're not going to list them all today, but you can look up scale and stuff like that. But the great thing about wargaming is that scale is more towards modeler type, right?
Well, yes.
Wargamers are not so concerned about scale, is that correct?
I've sold quite a few of these paper structures, particularly the two garages that I make, to S-gauge model railroaders.
So these are also good for model railroad
scenes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so as you can see, there's a whole wide range. We've got lots of stuff, a lot of different models we can go over, and a lot of different things, but we don't have that kind of time today. But I wanted to thank John for being here today, and you're going to continue producing paper models for quite some time, correct?
Oh yes, well, until they put me in the ground, I'll be doing paper models.
Until he's up there at the big GM table in the sky, he'll be making models, so don't be worried, folks. All right, John, well, thanks for coming on the show today.